You know, the world could always use more heroes.
What's up everybody, hope all is well. It's time to say goodbye to Overwatch 1. On October 4th, the game we all know and love comes to an end. How's that make you feel? What's it make you think? 6 years flew by, chock full of ups and downs. I'm a sentimental person and thus I found the looming end filled with conflicting emotions, but there's a famous quote by Henry David Thoreau that's helped me with matters like this over the years. What lies behind us and what lies ahead are tiny matters when compared to what lives within us. And with that sentiment, I'd like to say goodbye to Overwatch. For me, it's about more than the game. It's a time to reflect on just what Overwatch has meant, how it helped me, how it shaped me, how my experiences will inform my outlook on the next game, and in a sense on life in general. There will always be a game, but what you take from it is what really matters. 89% of my audience is between 18 and 34. I'm a bit older, and while I suspect some of you are starting to understand this, let me enlighten the rest. Life does, in fact, sneak up on you. One day you wake up and realize the best things in life take years to play out, while simultaneously realizing the math doesn't add up to having much time left for those best things in life to happen. Immediately your perspective shifts and what you once coveted falls to the wayside, replaced by more intangible things, replaced by experiences and feelings and relationships. Overwatch, as it's turned out, became one of those best things in life. I can count on one hand the number of things that are truly important to me, and gaming is among those, and I can count on one hand the number of games that have been truly important to me, and Overwatch is among those. Now, I have to say Overwatch coming to an end hits a little different here for two reasons. First, to be honest, I'm not really feeling Overwatch 2. It's fine, but I don't know that I'll be playing it as much. And second, Overwatch 1 is being deleted. I get why they're doing it, and I don't fault them, but that doesn't change that it'll be the first game I've ever loved I can't ever go back and play. Those two things have added a layer of finality and permanence to something that typically carries on. So yeah, it's a bummer, man, but as much as sentiment tugs at my heartstrings, it takes a backseat to my eternal optimism and positive attitude. So let's spin it. We aren't reminiscing here, we're celebrating for having had a chance to experience this the last 6 years. There's a lot to be happy for, a lot of laughs, a lot of friendships, a lot of experiences, a lot of tough times overcome by simply sitting down at our desk and logging in. Somewhere a group of nerdy friends are debating the biggest multiplayer launch title of all time, and Overwatch has to be in that discussion. At this level, we're talking about more than numbers. We're talking about titles that were so big and novel as to essentially own pop culture for their moment in time. When it launched in 2016, the synergies between traditional, online, and viral marketing, social media, and esports had really hit their stride, and Activision Blizzard had years of practice perfecting said synergies with Call of Duty and World of Warcraft. It all coalesced to create a damn near perfect hype machine for Overwatch, and the game itself was damn near perfectly accessible. It was easy to pick up and play on any major platform for just $40. Literally overnight, Overwatch was everywhere. Television commercials, collectibles, viral marketing, cosplay, memes. It found popularity on Twitch and YouTube and was relentlessly covered by online publications. It even had late night talk show hosts playing it on air. This went on for months. It was one of those ultra rare games that transcends and becomes more. It becomes an event. Looking back, I should have known it would be a special game. The one significant memory I have from my first game, Torb, Defense, and Nubis, by the way, was that I couldn't believe how polished it was. It looked so great and played so well. I wanted to try every hero, and as impressive as the game was the community that sprung up. It was massive and talented and funny and entertaining, and it made the game feel alive. It was a truly unique experience for me. I lived through OG Halo, WoW, and even League of Legends, but none felt as ever present in my life as Overwatch did. So in a sense, as much as we have to thank the devs for making a great game, we have to thank the community for giving Overwatch its place in the gaming lexicon. So yeah, if you experienced it, don't forget it, because you only get a handful of those in life. Absent good content creators, games fade into obscurity. Absent a good community, the game dies. That we made it 6 years all the way to the end, celebrating in the good times and commiserating the bad, proves the Overwatch content creators and community are something special. Not without its stereotypes and shortcomings, I do, however, sincerely believe it's a net positive situation. First, content creators, everyone big and small who's contributed and put in time and effort to add to the community except for me. They are in large part why the game got so popular, stayed popular, and especially that it survived on life support these last 2 years. They're one of the most entertaining, creative, and talented gaming communities I've seen online. Diligently dedicated, always ready to call Blizz out on their BS, yet doing their best to paint an optimistic picture and stay positive. There are way too many to list, but I'm talking about people like Seagull, Tim the Tatman, Dinoflask, and yes, even XQC in the early days. People like ML7, Flats, J3, and Emong in the latter years. What about your Overwatch, Stylosa, and Noob Hunter, who gave us thoughtful discussion and recapped events throughout? Yes, this is their job, so there's that baggage to look beyond, but it doesn't change the fact that at some point in time, they all went above and beyond and helped breathe life into the game. While we're talking creators, go check out my good bud, Cheese. The link's below. Now, the community. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. On its surface, you're all awful people. What's wrong with you guys? My God, I mean, I kid. But seriously though, I've never seen a worse official forums, I've never heard so much hate on comms, and I've never read worse things in chats. It's nuts. But that's just at surface level. Once you get past the grime, odds are you will encounter some great people. Beyond MMOs like EVE and World of Warcraft, I can confidently say I made more friends in Overwatch than any other game I played, and being such a unique game means our interests generally align, so I fully expect I'll be playing with them for years to come, even beyond Overwatch.
You guys know there have been a lot of changes to Mercy, but I feel like, at this point, the less said about Mercy, the better. We really felt like the game was becoming, less Overwatch and more Mercy Watch. So with Mercy taken care of, the eye of Kaplan now turns to Hanzo. We are looking into Hanzo specifically at abilities like Scatter Arrow for potential changes. Hanzo mains have been asking us, please don't wreck my beloved Snipey Arrow dude. So kind of wanted to reassure you guys that making sure things feel balanced, keeping Hanzo a powerful, viable hero in the Overwatch roster, and listening to community feedback. These are things that we're not going to do, so you should sort of prepare yourself for that. And we've also given Hanzo a horizontal leap that allows him to leap in whatever direction he's facing. Now, I know that there's some of you who are thinking, but Jeff, horizontal leap is McCree's ability. What are you doing giving it to Hanzo? Well, if you're lucky, maybe Hanzo will use it to leap off of your team and go be a useless piece of shit somewhere else.
Some of you may not know, but long before the Overwatch League was a thing called Apex. It was a grassroots league run out of South Korea for 2 years, I believe, and it was awesome. I mean, just check out the finals from Season 3. This is epic. But when Blizz announced the Overwatch League was starting in 2018, Apex would be short-lived. Initially, it was to become what we know today as Overwatch Contenders, but that fell apart and OGN shut down for good. The Overwatch League, though, talk about a hype machine. Serena Williams in commercials, matches on ESPN, billionaire owners. It was mega, and I was really excited. The first year or two were actually pretty good in my opinion, but times of cruel mistress and eventually shrinking budgets combined with the pandemic pretty much killed it. There were plans for teams to build their own stadiums in their home cities, and throughout the year, Overwatch would travel around calling these homestands. But in light of recent events, that never happened, and chopping the production budget didn't help. Almost all their best honor talent was gone, the fancy Overwatch auditorium gone, Twitch streams gone, and the convenient match times gone as well. Not to mention players always harbored a grudge as it seemed the game was being built and balanced for pro play, neglecting like 99.9% of the player base. Now, with it going to 5v5, matches have never been more predictable and boring. I honestly do think it'll be gone in a few years, but that's just a guess. Personally, I'm conflicted. I do think successful AAA competitive shooters require a league these days. It's a major part of the marketing and hype, but I don't see how the Overwatch League did anything good for players. Had it blown up, generating millions of dollars or millions of players that could have been poured back into the game, I think we'd be more accepting, but from our perspective, it used company resources that could have gone into the game, created balance issues by making changes that catered to pro play, yet were entirely inaccessible by the average player, and its failure by proxy has left an indelible mark on the game. I really tried to come up with something good here for esports, but it was tough. Apex was cool, I like the on-air talent, Zoe's the best, and Monte Cristo's a legend. That's about all I've got. Regardless, esport aspirations are firmly planted in the history of Overwatch. Do you guys even care about esports? Let me know below. Good lore grounds a player in that world, and charismatic characters keep him there. In both regards, I think Blizzard knocked it out of the park. Can we all agree the animated shorts might be the best thing about Overwatch? I mean, I'm joking, but also not really. They're freaking fantastic. I like how each is its own distinct story in time that fills a hero's backstory, but subtle dialogue and scenes eventually link them all together to show how we got to current events in Overwatch. And beyond the lore aspect, the animated shorts are exceptionally well done. As a standalone series, each ticks all the right boxes to get the viewer invested. Honor and Glory is my favorite. It's freaking heart-wrenching. You teared up. Admit it. Come on, admit it. They've also got a whole catalog of comics and short stories to further flesh things out. And if I'm being honest, that's where the story is. It's the old book versus film debate. The animated shorts capture the essence of the Overwatch world, but the comics and short stories add the finer details that make the world seem alive. It's the little things, as Dr. Ford would say. Speaking of charismatic characters, how about all the new heroes we got? July 2016, Ana. Tanks hate her abilities, and she introduced burst healing to the game, so a lot of haters who say she's OP. Her only downside are shields and line of sight. Also, no mobility or headshots. Also, she's projectile hipfire. Also, her dots can be cleansed. Also, she needs great aim. Also, some of the longest cooldowns in the game, but man, that sleep's worth the trade-off, right, Animains? November 2016, Sombra. Everyone loves her, no one wants to play her. She walks such a thin line between being OP and garbage that I think most players just can't be bothered. Because of her upside, it seems like Blizz has intentionally kept her down, as making her kit casual friendly could be catastrophic to all levels. March 2017, Orisa. What can I say? Meh. The least charismatic and interesting hero they released post-launch. Her kit in Overwatch 1 is just boring, but thankfully they're shaking it up in Overwatch 2, and she looks to be a lot more engaging. July 2017, Doomfist. Go watch this video from Zebra. It might be the most entertaining Overwatch video I've ever seen from a pure gameplay perspective, but tell me that's good hero design. In the right hands, Doom is ridiculous. There's nothing else in the game even remotely approaching it. Even when he's not silently dropping on you from the rooftops for free kills, he's got the tools to make you scream in frustration. I talked about him in my last video, how he's changing so much from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, and if I'm being honest, I think they went a bit too far. Of all the tanks, I felt least threatened by him. I could almost mess with him. A far cry from the insta-gibbing, stun-locking hero we know today. Abilities aside, I have to say, the most charismatic new hero they released. Dude's a movie star. November 2017, Moira. Not much to say about Moira. She's a pretty basic hero that's a solid pick regardless of the situation. I dig her backstory and flow of her gameplay. I just wish she required maybe a little more thought to play. Not sure the deleted necrotic orb was the answer, but I like that direction. I just think she really needs a skill shot. March 2018, Brigitte. By far the most polarizing and controversial hero in Overwatch. The original intent was to provide protection for support from flankers, but her power was way beyond that. Overnight, some of the most popular heroes like Tracer and Genji were basically rendered useless, eventually leading to new metas formed around her, like the infamous goats. We'll talk more about that shortly. Some even go so far as to say she's what killed the game. I think that's a bit much. She changed it for sure, but the number of people who quit specifically and purely because of a single hero is exaggerated. Regardless, much like Doom, but to a greater degree, people cursed an OP melee hero being in the game. If she came after you, it was basically game over, unless you're a tank, and even then, it's a lottery. July 2018, Wrecking Ball. Blizzard's attempt to move away from anchor tanks was called Wrecking Ball. In the right hands, he excels at making space and disrupting enemies, well known for his spin to win tactics, but thankfully Blizz has removed that, and he's only mildly irritating to play around now. Still though, something about heroes who were built solely around CC is just annoying. November 2018, Ashe. The best thing about Ashe is Bob. Not much to say beyond that other than she's probably what Widow should have been. March 2019, Baptiste. The last support we received and the first to be full-on hit scan of everything Overwatch 2. That's what I want most. More hit scan supports. Anyways, he's a solid hero. Everyone freaks about his lamp. Maybe rightfully so. August 2019, Sigma. When Sigma launched, he was mad powerful. Do you remember? I played tank for a month or two purely because of him. Even after he was nerfed, I still had fun simply because he's interactive. There's always a cooldown or strategy to monitor. Also a certifiably insane Overwatch hero. That's very cool. If Blizz had the guts, they could go uber dark with him in Overwatch 2. And finally, April 2022, Echo. She should have been a support. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Goats. 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 It's a goat. I think it's a goat.
I figured I'd address what was probably the biggest issue in Overwatch, goats. Quickly, for the uninitiated, goats referred to a comp of 3 tanks and 3 supports, no DPS. The idea was by playing together, the amount of hit points and heals per second was almost impossible to overcome. Its roots come from an Overwatch contenders team called Goats who won their division using the strategy. Shortly after, all the pro teams in Overwatch League copied it, and for a solid yearish, it was nothing but mirror matches. Eventually, as all metas do, it trickled down to ladder players. Once it had a foothold at this level, it became an extremely divisive issue. Some players loved the strategy, others hated DPS was excluded, others hated how it forced a game a certain direction, and role queue was the result, a massive fundamental change to the game in its own right. Regardless, even today it's still talked about, and something Overwatch went downhill from there because of it. Now, this is just my opinion, but I think the whole thing was overblown. It was a problem for sure, but reality is Goats was rarely played properly or effectively on ladder. Masters, sometimes yeah, GM for sure, but around that time I was in Diamond, so roughly what, top 10-15% of players, and we almost never made it work. Occasionally yeah, but it was so rare you'd find 6 people who can play the right heroes at the level required and execute as a team. Anecdotally, I'd say I lost more matches trying to play Goats than I did regular comps. But gaming communities being gaming communities, they saw pro level players complaining and adopted those problems as their own. That theme persists to this day. All I can do is roll my eyes when people throw out arguments like, you can't even play projectile heroes anymore. I mean, please, at the pro level, yeah, but for ladder players, almost universally, a player and team are most effective playing the heroes they know best. It's like half delusion of grandeur and half Stockholm syndrome. It's wild. In closing though, I've got one phrase for you. Mini Goats. Have you heard of this? Goats is sorta back in pro play, Junker Queen, Lucio, Brig, and whatever 2 DPS you want. It's a gray area as it's not technically Goats with DPS, but it is a brawly comp with a lot of hit points and sustain. Right or wrong isn't for me to decide, I just find it ironic that after all this, roll Q and 5v5, we're still leaning towards high sustain comps. Who would have thought? So, final thoughts. 6 years is way too much to cover in a video, not to mention I can't find footage for half the things I wanted to include, like when there were no hero limits, when Roadhog could pull you around corners, when Mercy could res entire teams or hero bans, and I didn't even talk about the actual gameplay, which, let's be honest, is the best team-based shooter there is. But I hope what I did include helped remind you of the magic that is Overwatch. You don't know what you've got until it's gone is ringing true for me, and that's easy to lose sight of. So it's over, but what a freaking great game, right? Overwatch is firmly in my top 5. I'll look back on it as the perfect game until it wasn't. And with that, I'm done. Appreciate you taking the time. Take care of one another, and I will see you soon.
No, I'm staying here.
But without you.
Lieutenant, you took an oath to be a crusader. Now, keep it.
I won't leave you!
The team needs you. Be their shield. Reinhardt, live with honor.
Die with glory, old friend.